Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you adore music, you're going to want to subscribe below so you don't miss an episode. We're now a daily channel, have some amazing things coming, and hit us up on Patreon. That helps us do more videos and interviews. Now in the past, I've done a few videos where I've talked about 5 seemingly passed over songs from the 80s that should be in more regular rotation in our lives. Today, we're going to jump into hidden gems from the decade that followed, the 90s. Now, whenever pop culture uses music from the 90s to represent that decade, just like the 80s, they seem to use the same 30 songs. Have you ever noticed that they always use the Spice Girls wannabe? Anyway, there are so many great songs from the 90s that deserve a second spin or a second click listen. These songs haven't been used in culture much, and they haven't been played as much on the radio. It's time to change that. I've included them in a playlist below so you can listen, see if you agree. So make sure to click below, leave a comment about your feelings, and let's talk about it. So let's get right into it. Number 5, Hazard by Richard Marx. Richard Marx was one of a few artists who absolutely dominated the end of the 80s. He became the first solo artist to reach the top 5 with his first 7 singles. 3 of those went to number 1, including Hold On to the Nights from his debut album, and Right Here Waiting and Satisfied from his second album, Repeat Offender. In 1992, he released his third album, Rush Street, his first of the 90s. The first single was the remarkable Keep Coming Back. That hit number 12 and number 1 on the AC charts. Love that song. Hazard was the second single and a bit of a departure for Marx, who up to that point had tended to release singles that were, ballads or straight ahead rockers. A Murder Ballad was not what you'd expect, and it was well received. It went to number 1 on the AC charts and number 9 on the Hot 100. It's also number 1 in Australia, number 3 in the UK, and pretty much number 1 in 13 different countries. I don't hear this song much anymore, and I don't know why. It's a fan favorite. It's also one of Marx's best songs, which is saying a whole lot because he's written so many great ones. It's very haunting and musically and lyrically. Everyone should really listen to it. It's very compelling. Hazard tells the story of a relationship between the narrator and a woman named Mary. Mary disappears under suspicious circumstances one night walking by the river. The narrator, who has been scorned by people in this small town since he was very young, hence the lyric, "That boy's not right," is considered the main suspect. The narrator, however, maintains his innocence, and the question remains throughout the song.
I swear I left her by the river.
As this song was written before the internet, Richard Marx wrote to the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce. He requested a list for Nebraska towns with 2 syllables. That's what he needed. Hazard was perfect for its double meaning. Here's what Richard said in an interview that we did about the song.
It was all musically generated first. I was listening on that tour, the Repeat Offender tour. I would get in the back of the tour bus with my headphones, and I was listening to a lot of Daniel Lanois, his solo records. And especially the more instrumental stuff it just took me away. They were movies in my head without a cast and without a plot. And so I wrote this piece of music one night, and I knew I wasn't stealing anything from him, but it was just the vibe, you know? So I wrote all the music to Hazard, and I knew that I didn't want it to be a love song or anything like I'd ever written before, because the music was very different. And I've always been a fan of mystery novels and mystery movies and stuff. So I thought the challenge of writing a story, like Ode to Billy Joe, or, there's only a handful of story songs that really work.
Murder ballads.
Yeah. And I didn't think it would be a hit. I mean, I was the last person in the world that thought it would be a hit. I just thought it would be an interesting album track. And when they picked that as a single, and then it was number 1 in like 14 different countries. And it's when I play live, it's still like, it's amazing how big that song still is. I love doing it acoustically. It just kind of works, period. It's one of my favorite songs I've ever written.
So, who killed Mary?
I don't know.
You don't even know?
No, I never formed an opinion. I wrote it as an unsolved mystery. I thought, that's what I'm going to do when I write. Like there was that Robert Stack show, Unsolved Mysteries on NBC. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I'm going to write a musical unsolved mystery. That was it. I didn't give a shit. I didn't know or care.
It was just about...
And then there were MTV was running contests to, who killed Mary? The correct answer will win a trip to the Bahamas. I was like, there's no correct answer.
Number 4, Last Night on Earth by U2. You know, U2 was another act that rose to phenomenal success in the 80s. The 90s, in my opinion, brought wonderful experimentation from, ACHTUNG Baby to Zooropa to Pop, which came out in 97, and it was really unlike anything that the band had done prior to that. Last Night on Earth was the 3rd single from the record after the title track and Staring at the Sun, and it hit number 57 on the charts here. The song was actually written during the Zooropa sessions, but it was put aside for a later time. So Last Night on Earth was dug up when they were putting together Pop. In fact, the band was in a rush to get the recording of Pop finished as they had the Pop Mart tour that was starting. And it was in the last night in the studio at like 4 in the morning. After being up all night, Bono began singing the line, "You Gotta Give It Away," which became the chorus, and now the song was finished. But now Bono had to step right in and record the vocal to finish the record. But the problem is he completely lost his voice, so echoes were added in for effect. I remember seeing this song live on the Pop Mart tour. It was so spine-chilling. They had this spotlight that went all the way up to the sky, and this strange cartoon was playing on these gigantic screens behind him. And I remember Bono introduced the song. He was saying something like, I went looking for the spirit, found alcohol. I went looking for soul, and I bought some style. I wanted to meet God, but you sold me religion. With all that imagery and declaration and the way Bono sang it that night, I really felt like it was the last night on Earth. Number 3, Get the Message by Electronic. Bernard Sumner, the lead singer in New Order. Johnny Marr, the guitarist and one half of the songwriting phenomenon known as the Smiths, together in a band called Electronic. It was simply one of the greatest things to happen at the end of the 80s. It really was. In my opinion, Get the Message is the landmark recording from this supergroup. Now, Sumner and Marr met in '84 when Marr contributed to a Quando Quango track that Bernard was producing. They came together again in '88 when Sumner was preparing to produce a solo album. He didn't desire to work alone, so he called upon Marr. As they started to put together what would become Electronic's debut record, which is one of the greatest debut records ever, it really is. They were inspired by contemporary dance music like Italo House and artists like Technotronic. Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe, the Pet Shop Boys, lended their genius to several tracks, including the first single, Getting Away With It. That went to the top 40 here in the US. Apparently, Neil Tennant had heard about the Sumner and Marr collaboration through sleeve designer Mark Farrow, and he wanted in. Now, very soon, we're going to be doing something on the Pet Shop Boys. Just thought I'd share that. Electronic's debut was released on May 27, 1991, and it went to number 2 in the UK. It also sold over 1 million copies worldwide. Get the Message was released a month before the album that went to the top 10 in the UK, and it went to number 1 on the US Modern Rock Tracks chart. Get the Message is the supreme example of Marr and Sumner's original concept of mixing the dynamic synthesizers of New Order with the Smiths' majestic guitar sound, and the results are insanely spectacular. Electronic had debuted the song when they opened for Depeche Mode on the Violator tour in 1990 at Dodger Stadium. Can you even imagine? I'd give my left arm to have seen that concert. Probably some of you did see that concert. Anyway, Johnny Marr composed the music, and then Sumner wrote the lyric little by little while engineer Owen Morris played the song every 4 bars. Sumner was able to talk Johnny Marr into layering numerous guitar parts, where Marr was at first unsure about that approach. Denise Johnson of Primal Scream recorded a vocal at the end of the song that really makes an already grand song somehow grander. This song is so luxurious, so extensive and palatial. By the end of the song, you can almost hear Johnny Marr do a mic drop. Almost like, hey, Morrissey, your move. Now, don't get me wrong. I love both of them dearly. I'm just saying that this is one of the best songs, best modern rock songs of that time. Take it to the bank. Go listen to it. I dare you to tell me I'm wrong. You won't be able to. Number 2, For You by the Outfield. Now here's the thing about the Outfield. I know the word underrated is really overused, so I won't use it here. Instead, I'll put it this way. You really need to go back and listen to every album by this band, song for song. They are like the British Journey. I mean, such a tight band. Their harmonies are legendary. Yeah, you heard that right. No hyperbole. They're legendary. Tony Lewis and the late John Spinks should be so much more celebrated than they are. I mean, go listen to the first 4 albums if you haven't. You're going to thank me later. However, I do think the Outfield are very beloved. From the perspective of the charts, they had 5 top 40 hits in the US and 1 album that went platinum and 1 that went gold. But decades later, if you look at their views on YouTube and their plays on Spotify, you'll see that their songs are as popular as they've ever been. And they're crossing generations. I've always felt that Tony's voice is like equal parts Sting, Steve Perry, and John Anderson of Yes. But there's something else in Tony's timbre that puts him in a league of his own. And on the song For You, his voice just bleeds desperation and sadness. It's a vocal that spills torture and anguish all over the song. It's just heartbreaking to hear, heart-wrenching. It's one of my favorite performances by Tony, which is saying a lot. Now, here's what Tony said about this in my interview with him.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of basically rearranged so many times, and John wanted to capture that sort of lost soul voice. I'm really, really pleading, I'm so sad, feeling since you left. He wanted that. He was a very big Steve Perry fan, and I was, and still am. We wanted to capture that in a pop song, which, the same thing with a bass line, boom, 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 boom. We love that rhythm section approach to pop songs, and it just happened in the studio.
The song went to number 21, making it the band's 3rd biggest hit. Also, I want to mention the breathtaking guitar work of John Spinks. He is one of the great songwriters of that era for sure. I just love the Outfield so much. So great. And number 1, Baby It's Tonight by Jude Cole. Jude Cole. Yeah. How this guy didn't become a massive artist is mind-boggling to me. He's got the looks, the voice, the songwriting chops. He's even got the songs. It's a bit frustrating, to be honest. More people should know about him and his body of work. I remember the first time I heard the song Baby It's Tonight. I was at a restaurant with my family. I was kind of daydreaming about this girl from my class that I knew that I had no chance with. All of a sudden, this beautiful guitar line came out of the overhead speaker, going in and out with that guitar. I heard that first vocal, "Won't you pick up the phone, because I know that you're home."
Won't you pick up the phone, because I know that you're home.
By the time it got to the chorus, I was completely floored. I felt that eruption I always get when I hear a song for the first time, and I'm desperate to know what it is. I needed Shazam right then, but in 1990, Shazam was a superhero, not an app. So I tried to memorize the song, which was pretty easy since it was so rad. For the next few weeks, seriously, I called up local radio stations, I visited Musicland, and I would give everybody a really good laugh because I'd try to sing it to see if they could tell me what it was, and nobody knew the song. I was depressed. I wanted to know what this song was so badly. I think I even prayed for its identity to be known to me. Kids today will never know this struggle. Anyway, I suffered for like a month. And then one day, I was listening to the radio in my bedroom, and lo and behold, the heavens opened. And the song came on, and you better believe I was ready. I jumped across the room. I tackled my boombox. I pressed play and record. Remember when you had to do that? With my trusty TDK Maxell blank tape, all ready to capture it. It worked. I mean, I remember jumping around my room screaming, holy shit, about 15 times. And I remember my dad bursting in the room saying, what the hell's going on? Stop your damn swearing. I couldn't control. I was so elated. And then the DJ came on and said that it was Jude Cole. 2 miracles on one day. I bought the album several days later, and I was hooked. I'm telling you, this song is sublime guitar pop. I just love the chorus. Oh man, and Jude Cole's voice is so pure with a great rock edge, especially going out of that bridge. His voice to me seemed very Don Henley-esque.
Take some time. Oh, yeah. 'Cause baby, it's too late.
I hope to interview him someday, really. Jude Cole created a few albums worth of great songs and deserves a second listen, and a third listen, and a fourth, and a fifth. I mean, I can't say enough about him. Another great song from that album, which by the way is called A View from 3rd Street, is called Time for Letting Go. I mean, the whole album's really great. Baby Is Tonight went to number 16 on the Hot 100 in the late spring of 1990. So there you have it, my 5 picks for hidden gems from the 90s. Do me a favor, go listen to these songs in the playlist below with an open mind and drop us a line. What do you think of these songs? Let's talk about it. What are your hidden gems from the 90s? What else should we feature on future installments? Also, if you like the content, subscribe below, click the bell so you never miss an episode. Also, help us out on Patreon if you're able to. That really helps us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe.